up, y'all? How y'all doing today? Well, if your name is Sean Diddy Combs, baby, you just got hit with another lawsuit. But baby, Mark Agnifilio is not taking this line down. He's saying, Yana, my client could not have done any of these horrible things. Diddy's defense for the newest lawsuit, which by the way is an underage person, she seems to have proof. We believe all victims. Mark Agnifilio's angle is, Yana, my client couldn't have done this thing. Yana, it's impossible for over this many people to say they were insulted and assaulted by this very person. And to which I will say, have you interviewed the rats and roaches in Diddy's cage in his jail cell? Because at the end of the day, I'm sure they even got stories to tell. Again, it's shocking to me that Diddy's new defense is I couldn't have done it because too many people are saying I did it. Diddy, that is not an alibi. That is literally season one of the making of a monster. By the way, don't forget we're going to have live watch parties for a lot of these Diddy documentaries, especially the 4-part one. Let me know what you think in the comments, okay? Or if you're actually going to join me, but forget all that because we need to talk about this newest lawsuit. She gave a harrowing account of what actually happened. She is a Jane Doe. She is a Jane Doe. And listen, let me just say, it might be proven that some of these people are putting 20 on 10. It might be proven that some of these people are lying, but I refuse to believe that this many people have come out to lie against this man who, by the way, besides Cassie, Diddy has not paid a dime to anyone. So people are saying, oh, they just looking for money. They looking for a come up. None of these other cases besides Cassie have been what do you call it? Have been settled. On top of that, you actually have to look at what's really going on, which is, I believe, and this is just my opinion, right? I feel like because Diddy is weakened, because his reign of terror is over, a lot of people are speaking out. And it's not just about getting money, it's not just getting him arrested. A lot of people want Diddy's reputation ruined because he used his reputation to prey on people. Now, I know some people might be like, there's a war on black billionaires. No, there's not, because there are still plenty of black billionaires, all of them a lot richer than Diddy and their faves, who are not raping and pillaging the village, if you know what I'm saying. So for anybody that's just saying no, that why don't y'all put the effort into supporting law-abiding billionaires if that's what you're looking for? Anyway, let's get into this, right? They're saying that she was a 16-year-old high school student. What does that mean? It means she couldn't have consented. Even if she did, she couldn't have consented. She was residing with her parents in Lower Manhattan. She worked part-time as a babysitter at an apartment building around the corner from where she lived. In the building where she babysat, a well-known woman who whom the defendant was in a relationship also resided. Are you trying to say she lived in Kim Porter's old apartment building? Are you trying to say that this was maybe J Lo? But then again, we can't even throw those things out because at the end of the day, Diddy was involved with half of New York, if you actually believe the stories. And at this point, I actually do. Anyway, let's get in more of the nature of the action. On or about between late August or early September 2000, she was 16 years old. Just before school started, she was working as a babysitter in the building where Diddy's romantic partner lived. As she left the babysitting job and was exiting the building, she came upon Diddy, who was in the presence of two male individuals who apparently worked for him. He was sitting in a car with the door open. He engaged her in conversation, asked where she was going so late at night. Okay? And it was not safe for her to be walking along. She advised Diddy that she lived around the corner and was familiar with the neighborhood and would be fine. Diddy didn't stop. He offered her a ride home several times, but she continued to refuse. After much cajoling, she agreed and got into his car. Getting into Diddy's car that day was something she would regret forever. During the ride, she became scared when they did not drop her off as promised. He gave her a drink to calm her down. She soon became groggy and unsteady. Diddy and the staff, the two male co-defendants, proceeded to a location where she was sexually by Diddy. On top of that, they are taking the New York City Victims Gender Motivated Violence and Protection Act, right? Now, let me just say this, right? Mark Agnifilio said this is all lies. He says this couldn't happen. Um, he says that Yana, there's just no way. However, at the end of the day, it is another lawsuit, and Diddy still has not answered for any of them. Now we know he is windmilling, fighting for his life in federal court, but me thinks he hasn't answered any of these lawsuits because he knows if he does, the government can and will use it against them. See, here's the thing: when it was just civil and it was just Cassie, and he thought he could play in our faces, he was happy to play in our face. But now that he knows that the government means business, now that he knows that the government is not allowing him to play in our faces, now that he knows that anything he says can and will be used against him, you notice the way Mark Agnifilio is just sitting there on, Yana, at this time we have nothing more to say. Mark Agnifilio and them are just sitting on mute. You guys, listen. This is an absolutely unmitigated mess. TMZ is reporting that she says she was underage when the alleged assault occurred. Let me just say this too, right? During the 2000s to 2000, actually in America, I would say during 1997 to 2008, it was acceptable for people that were celebrities to have a young thing around. What we looked at as assault, what we looked at as rape, what we looked at as DV, but even what we looked at as abuse, right? How many songs were written in the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s about having a tenderoni, having a young thing? I'm talking about rap, rock, have it, whatever you want. About she's just 16 years old, right? There are so many songs, sonnets, poems written about this weirdo behavior back then that we need to accept that people thought that it was culturally acceptable. At least the villains did. On top of that, that was at a time where if a woman was SA'd, unless they were put in the hospital and left there, people really thought it was your job to guard your honor. And if they caught you slipping, well, that was just on you. So, given that was a time, given that what things were people were thinking about, I do not think it's far-fetched that Diddy saw a pretty 16-year-old babysitting, decided he wanted a quick sneaky link, was leaving the building, convinced her, gave her that, and then dropped her off. Let's also not forget back then, they did not test for date grape drug. Nobody really knew what it was. So even if something happened, people would be like, oh, maybe I drank something. Diddy had gotten away with it allegedly for years. So again, I feel like he thought he was committing the perfect crime. So I actually think this is 100% believable, right? She got scared when he didn't drop her off at home. He gave her a drink to calm her down. Isn't that the perfect thing? Wait, where are you taking me? Because you're in a car with 3 men and you're only 16. And let's not forget, you got to be home by a certain time. So you're probably worried about getting in trouble. So here, just drink this, just calm down. And you're doing it because you're like, are you going to drop me off at home? All right. She suffered financial damages, physical injury, and serious emotional distress. Diddy's legal team does say, Yana, no matter how many lawsuits are filed, it won't change the fact that Mr. Combs has ever sexually assaulted or sex property anyone, man or woman, adult or minor. Excuse me, Mark Agnifilio, but I believe the U.S. Attorney's Office begs to differ. We live in a world where anyone can file a lawsuit for any reason. Fortunately, a fair and impartial judicial process exists to find the truth, Your Honor. Mr. Combs is confident he will prevail in court. Baby, we gonna see, because May is coming up sooner than you think. And let's also not forget, the federal government wants to get the Enterprise paper, the Enterprise letter, March the 7th. That's when we find out who his co-defendants are and who his co-conspirators are. However, Diddy is posting he wants that letter by February 1st. Baby, if we get that letter February 1st, you know we're going to have a marathon live. But regardless of what you think, let me know what you think in the comments. And I'll talk to y'all later.